quiet leaders, we do not need that spotlight, but we do absolutely own the room. Hello, and welcome back to the Quiet Leaders podcast. Today, I want to talk about something that will change how you are seen, how you are paid, and how you show up inside of your client relationships. And it's that if you position yourself as support, you're going to be seen as support. However, if you position yourself as a leader, you will then be trusted as a leader. And this shift, it doesn't start with changing your title or anything like that. Instead, it actually starts with how you handle decisions. There is a big gap between I help my client, I manage tasks, I wait for direction, and I own outcomes, I protect mental bandwidth, I lead operations. And the difference between those two identities is ownership. It's not experience, it's not confidence, it's ownership. Now, most integrators who feel underpaid, overlooked, or are stuck, they're incredibly capable and have a lot of skills. So the problem is not skill, it's actually positioning. And you've heard me say this time and time again on this podcast. It's positioning. So when you operate like support, you wait. But when you operate like a leader, you filter. And one of the biggest shifts from this task doer to strategic partner is to stop forwarding every decision to the visionary. Because visionaries, they already are holding a lot. They're holding the big picture. They're holding the revenue pressure, the creative direction, team dynamics, energy management, and then the client delivery. So if every small operational question has to come back to them, you're not reducing their load. Instead, you are just redistributing it. And as a leader, we want to reduce that load. So here's a leadership lens that I personally use. So when something comes up, I always ask myself, is this a creative direction decision or is this an operational execution? So is this something that impacts the brand positioning, the long-term strategy, major budget shifts, or new offer pivots? Then of course that's going to belong to the visionary. But even then, when it does belong to the visionary, I don't usually bring them a blank question. Instead, I bring them a recommendation. So instead of what should we do, it becomes here are some options, and based on our goal of X, I recommend this one. What are your thoughts? Or if you don't have a recommendation, that is totally okay. But this is where we then will remind them of our goal and where we're working towards so that we stay aligned. Now, if the decision is operational, if it's execution based, and if it's within our established guardrails, then we, as the integrator, as the leader behind the scenes, handle it. And then we move forward. And then we update our visionary at a high level. Now, that is the leadership behind the scenes. Now, some of us, when we do update at this high level, we want to be careful to really recognize how our visionary likes to receive information. Because if they just want high level, we as the detail-oriented people need to adjust and shift to that because we can tend to give too much information. So that is one little tip to watch for there. Now, why this changes how you're paid? You don't earn premium retainers because you do more. So it's not about doing more. You earn these premium retainers because you think differently. So these support roles, they ask for direction. But leaders, we create that clarity. Again, support roles, they report on problems. And as leaders, we deliver outcomes. Support roles wait, leaders decide within scope. And the moment you start operating from this leadership lens, your clients are going to trust you faster. They're going to rely on you more. They're going to expand your scope, and they will certainly justify paying you more as well. Because you're no longer just a cost to doing business, you are actually leverage, or you become that indispensable partner. Now, I did touch on this a little bit, But a mistake that I see is over communicating details. As an integrator, a lot of us are really detail oriented, but the visionaries, again, they want outcomes. So what they want is they want to know things are handled, things are on track, things are resolved. So we do not need to go to them with every tech glitch, with every backend hiccup, or every small tool decision. So one of the most strategic things you can do is simplify your communication. So we don't want to go to our visionaries and say, well, our scheduler broke, the integration failed, or Google isn't syncing right. Instead, we want to go to them saying we've identified the issue and it's being resolved. One small action is needed from you and everything else is handled. So if there is something they do need to do, just name the one thing they have to do or whatever it may be. But we want to bring that calm, that contained, that confidence. And this tone is what elevates us as well. Now, I talk a lot about how our presence is actually the offer. And this is a clear instance of that. And that when we come into this calm and in a sustainable, like we're sustaining everything, we're that stability, that is truly the offer. Now, I also want to clarify another thing, because leadership really requires this discernment. And it's not, I don't want it to get mixed in that it's not an ego thing. This isn't about making crazy change without alignment. We do need to put some guardrails in place. So we really need to understand your visionaries' standards, their risk tolerance, their vision. Which brings me to something that many integrators overlook. And that is that the season really matters. So for example, if it's a really high demand season for the visionary, it's likely we want to absorb more of these micro decisions. But if it's a more spacious season, then of course we're going to collaborate more with our visionary. The more you tune into this seasonality and where someone is at in their business and their life too, the more indispensable you become. So now I do want to touch on the confidence piece as well, because this is where I see a lot of people get stuck or hesitate. So you might think, what if I overstep? What if I make the wrong call? What if they think I'm trying to take over their business? And this fear that creeps in is what can keep us stuck. So the reality is that you cannot position yourself as a strategic partner if you are afraid of this ownership. Now, confidence, this doesn't mean you know everything. It certainly does not mean you know everything. I don't know everything. But what it does mean is that you trust your ability to figure things out. Early in my business, I did so many things for the first time, and I'm still doing a lot of things for the first time. There's always going to be these times where you're trying something new. And it wasn't because I was an expert, but because I believed that I could handle it. And if I didn't know, I would find somebody who does. Now, this mindset alone is what really allowed my business to evolve, and not only just evolve, but evolve really quickly. So if there's one thing you take from this episode, it's having this belief in yourself that you know that you will be able to figure it out or find the person who can. Now, I also want to talk about a shift that I am seeing in the market right now, or especially in 2026, because when I started my business in 2020, the online space was booming at that time. People were buying left and right, and marketing really looked a ton different. I don't know if you remember, but people would have these long sales pages and digital products, and it was just, these funnels were just wild. But now, fast forward a few years from 2020, and we kind of started to see that dip in the market. The economy wasn't doing that great, and people really weren't spending as much, and selling then needed to change. So I watched some people honestly close down their business, but I also watched the people who did make it pivot and stay strong. They had to make these changes, which is what I love about small business, because we can make these pivots a lot easier. So right now in 2026, we're seeing another shift, and this time it's in the upwards direction, and people are investing again. And what I'm seeing is they want this structure, they want the systems, they want the efficiency, especially with AI. Like, people want to do things, want to make their life so much easier. We want less, we want simplification, but we don't always want to manage it ourselves, especially now with self-care and this holistic approach really being the forefront right now. People want to have that spaciousness. They want that time for themselves to pour into them, into their clients, and they want to make that impact. So really what these people are wanting, they're wanting this leadership. So the integrators who are going to win in this season are not the ones offering more tasks. Instead, they're the ones that are offering that clarity and that ownership. And they're the ones who can say, this is the level of responsibility that I hold. So I want you to sit with this. Where are you currently acting like support when you are capable of that leadership? Where are you forwarding decisions instead of filtering them? Where are you waiting for permission instead of operating within scope? And what would change if you showed up this week as a leader? Now, even one small decision can start shifting this perception. Now, if this conversation is really activating something in you and like you had some aha moments, and if you're realizing that you've been operating below your capacity, then I want to personally invite you to my Integrator Bootcamp happening March 11th. Inside the bootcamp, we are going to go deeper into what truly separates a task doer from a strategic integrator, how to position yourself as a leader inside client relationships, the 2 to 3 client business model and why less is actually more, and how to confidently communicate your level of ownership. We are going to elevate how you show up. So if you're ready to stop acting like support and start operating like a leader, this bootcamp is your next step. Now, all the details are in the show notes. And as always, quiet leaders, we do not need that spotlight, but we do absolutely own the room. I will see you in the next episode.